Discover the incredible truth, how this grandmother's hidden story changed 100 lives forever, in the heart of a quiet Midwestern town, where the sun painted the cornfields gold and children ran barefoot through streets that sparkled with laughter, lived Grandma Betty. This 80-year-old widow, with her silver hair and soft-spoken wisdom, was the rock of her family, yet she carried a secret that could shake their very foundations. Once a spirited nurse, Betty tended to the bloodied and broken during the Vietnam War, and those memories bathed her soul in both light and shadow. As her birthday approached, her estranged granddaughter Emily, drifting through life after losing her job in the city, returned home feeling lost and unworthy. Emily stepped into the dusty attic of her grandmother's house, the air thick with the scent of aged paper and forgotten dreams. Among boxes laden with ghostly memories, she stumbled upon a weathered suitcase. Curiosity pulled at her heart, and with trembling hands, she unlatched it. Inside lay letters, photographs, and the essence of a life bravely lived. Each page she turned held words that screamed courage, hope, and sacrifice. Her grandmother's elegant penmanship lined the letters like whispers across time, recounting harrowing tales of daring rescues. Emily felt her chest tighten. How could she have been so blind to this? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let us continue. As Emily dove deeper, she learned of the soldiers her grandmother had comforted, their faces showing gratitude while enveloped in despair. The letters unveiled Betty's undying spirit, a resilience that shone brightly despite societal scorn when she returned home. A once vibrant life had withered into the background, hidden beneath layers of perception and unfulfilled dreams. With her heart swelling with admiration, Emily felt a flame ignite within her, a desire to honor her grandmother's legacy, a mission to share the unsung tales that shaped their family. Determined to mend the rifts woven through her family, she organized a community event honoring local veterans, hoping to unite the town in remembrance. But as word spread, she found herself met with apathy. The townsfolk shrugged off the past, more comfortable in the embrace of ignorance. At the town hall meeting, tension crackled through the air like static before a storm. Doubters questioned the importance of honoring what they deemed forgotten heroes, leaving Emily feeling raw, exposed. Just as doubt seemed to spread like wildfire, Grandma Betty stepped out of the shadows. With each step, she pushed back against fear, her heart pounding. The room fell silent as she embraced her truth. Standing before the restless crowd, tears glistened in her eyes. She began to share her story, each sacrifice, each tender moment. Her voice trembled but shone with courage, igniting something deep in the hearts of all who listened. The small town walls started to crack, and with that, new possibilities flickered like stars in the night. Then, just as hope flickered brighter, an unforeseen event sent shockwaves through the room, like thunder after a lightning flash. Emily and Grandma Betty were left teetering on the edge of something monumental, the future waiting patiently, yet heavily, in the air. Would they break through the chains of silence? Would the town rise to remember the stories that had been silenced for too long? The answer was just within reach, pulsating with an undeniable energy, leaving them all yearning for a conclusion that felt both thrilling and terrifying at once. The room was electric, the air thick with the weight of anticipation. Grandma Betty's voice had woven a spell, pulling at threads of resentment, grief, and hope in the hearts of those gathered. As she recounted her experiences, the hesitant murmurs became soft gasps. Emily watched, mesmerized, as the smallest flicker of understanding sparked in the faces of her neighbors. They were starting to see her grandmother as more than an old woman, they were beginning to grasp the warrior hidden within. But just as the audience seemed ready to embrace this revelation, an unexpected interruption threatened to shatter this moment of clarity. The doors swung open, and in walked Tom, the town's mayor. He was a large man with a booming voice, his presence commanding attention. The proud emblem of authority on his chest gleamed under the harsh fluorescent lights. He tapped his watch, a gesture laden with irritation, shaking his head. "Betty, we appreciate your story, but shouldn't we focus on moving forward? We can't dwell in the past. His booming voice filled the space, laced with layers of dismissiveness. Emily clenched her fists, a surge of defiance swelling within her. The tension in the room thickened, everyone caught in a web of awkward silence. Tom's words stung like a slap, trying to crane the neck of hope back into the shadows. Tom, with all due respect, Emily began, her voice trembling but firm. We can't move forward without acknowledging those who sacrificed everything for us. Grandma Betty placed a hand on Emily's shoulder. It's not just my story, it's all of ours. Each sacrifice made during the war rippled through our lives, shaping who we are today. The mayor's brow furrowed, but Emily saw a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. It was as if the weight of history was unraveling the fabric of his indifference. Gradually, other voices began to rise. One by one, veterans and their families shared their own stories, tales of loss, bravery, and healing. The room transformed, becoming a chamber of connection. Each story built upon the other, stitching a larger tapestry of resilience and hope. With every shared memory, the rigid walls that once separated them began to soften. As the sun dipped lower, casting a golden hue over the gathering, Emily felt something shift inside her. Pride surged in her chest as she watched her grandmother, a woman who had lived under a heavy cloak of silence, finally embrace her legacy. The whispers that had haunted Betty for decades were now erupting into a celebration of life. Then, just as the event reached its peak, a figure in the back stood. It was Mark, a local journalist and an old friend from Emily's childhood. His presence hinted at an unspoken promise. He stared at Grandma Betty with intensity, his eyes glimmering with inspiration. Would you share your story with the world? People need to know. A hush fell over the crowd. Emily's heart raced. Could they really turn this moment into something bigger? Would Grandma Betty finally step into the light she so rightfully deserved? The flicker of possibility sparked a fire within her, but doubt wrestled for dominance. What if the town wasn't ready? What if they buried these stories again? Betty took a deep breath, her eyes shining with unshed tears. I'd like that, but it won't just be my story. It'll be ours. As those words hung in the air, Emily held her breath, sensing they were standing on the precipice of a profound change. What awaited them next was uncertain, but the fire of resilience was unmistakable. The crowd felt it too, a kindling warmth igniting their hearts. As the applause erupted, Emily and Betty exchanged a knowing, hopeful glance. This was only the beginning. But what would the path forward look like? Would the town rally to support them, or would they face resistance at every turn? The next chapter of their journey loomed ahead like an unopened book, full of possibilities yet unknown. The next day dawned bright and hopeful, sunlight pouring through the windows of Emily's home. The house felt electric still, charged with the energy of the previous night's revelations. She had barely slept, sleep so full of dreams about stories yet to be told, whispers of histories waiting in the shadows. Grandma Betty's bravery lingered like perfume in the air, a sweetness that promised transformation. Emily moved to the kitchen, the clatter of dishes grounding her in the present. Her phone buzzed on the table. A text from Mark glowed on the screen. Can we meet? I have ideas for the story. Her heart raced, excitement unfurling at the thought of amplifying her grandmother's voice. Within half an hour, she was in the local cafe, a warm little spot buzzing with familiar faces. It was the kind of place where laughter floated above the hum of espresso machines. Mark looked up as she walked in, his smile infectious. Emily, great to see you. He waved her over, his notebook already open, pen poised. So, what's the plan? I think we should start by gathering stories, not just from Grandma but everyone who was touched by this, by the war, by her strength, she replied, confidence lighting her words. It's not just her legacy, it's about healing our whole town. Mark nodded, his eyes sparkling with interest. What if we hosted a storytelling event? Like a collective gathering where people can come share their experiences. It could be powerful. Her mind raced. They could create space for voices long silenced, amplify the bravery of those who once suffered in shadows. Yes. We can get the community involved. They can help spread the word. Mark scribbled furiously. Emily thought about her neighbors, how they were slowly warming to Betty, how their stories intertwined like roots beneath the surface. As they fleshed out plans, hope thrummed in Emily's chest. But questions nagged at the back of her mind. Would everyone be willing to participate? What if they met resistance? Once they wrapped up their meeting, Emily walked home, her mind whirling with possibilities. The air was crisp, invigorating. She thought about Grandma, whose quiet strength was ready to shake the very foundations of their town. Arriving at her front door, she pushed it open, eager to share the ideas. To her surprise, Grandma Betty sat in the living room, surrounded by old photographs, her brow furrowed in thought. "Hey, Grandma," Emily said, her excitement spilling over. "Mark and I are planning a storytelling event to share your story and others. What do you think?" Betty looked up, her hands trembling slightly as she adjusted her glasses. "Emily, I'm not sure if I'm ready for that. What if they don't want to hear?" The words sank deep, a punch to Emily's gut. "But it's important. You have so much to share." It felt vital, like the air they breathed. "We can't stay quiet anymore." A flicker of doubt crossed Betty's face, but it was quickly replaced by something else: determination. Maybe it's time to let go of the fears. For a moment, they just stared at each other, an understanding passing silently between them. In that moment, Emily realized the story's real power would lie not just in the sharing, but in the shared strength it would cultivate. As night closed in, Emily prepared dinner, the quiet settling comfortably around them. But tension hummed in the space, an unspoken question lingering. If they opened this door to the past, what stories would emerge? In the days that followed, the town buzzed with rumors of the event, both excitement and apprehension swirling among the residents. Emily and Mark worked feverishly, sending out flyers, booking the town hall, and gathering volunteers, yet even as the anticipation grew, a fear gnawed at Emily. What if the very stories meant to unite them ended up tearing them apart? As the date approached, doubts mixed with hope, turning into a deliciously terrifying cocktail of anxiety and expectation. On the eve of the event, a storm rolled in, dark clouds blotting out the setting sun. The wind howled outside, rattling the windows. Emily paced the living room, her heart pounding. Was this a sign, or merely nature's whim? Then, the power flickered. A dark shroud settled over the house, plunging them into uncertainty. "Grandma, what if it just doesn't work out?" she whispered, barely able to contain her fears. Betty turned, fearlessly resolute. "Then we'll take it one step at a time. But we have to try, together." The weight of that night pressed down on them, as both hope and trepidation coiled in Emily's chest. She knew they were about to step into uncharted territory, a place where every story could change everything. What awaited them the next morning, when the storm passed and the truth blew through? Would the town embrace their stories or buck against the tide of history? The answer loomed closer than she dared to imagine. The morning broke with an eerie silence, as if the world was holding its breath. Emily blinked against the light streaming in through the kitchen window, feeling the warmth on her skin. The storm had passed, but the air was thick with the promise of something monumental. She tried to shake off the iron grip of anxiety that still clutched at her heart. Today was the day. "Grandma, are you ready?" she called, her voice trembling slightly. There was no response. Momentarily panicking, she hurried down the hall, peeking into Betty's room. There she was, sitting up in bed, a determined look crossing her features. "I'm awake, dear," she said, her voice steady. "Just collecting my thoughts." Emily found herself smiling. There was a light in her grandmother's eyes that hadn't been there before, a small flicker of hope that fueled Emily's own. They quickly ate breakfast, the usual chatter replaced by a charged silence. Emily's heart raced at the thought of what lay ahead. The town hall was alive with movement. Volunteers buzzed around, chairs were set up, and tables displayed beautiful flyers they had designed together. Each detail emphasized the will to share the stories that mattered. As they approached the hall, doubts crept back. What if the townspeople didn't respond the way they hoped? What if they scoffed at the pain and the history laid bare before them? "Breathe," Grandma said softly, her hand gently squeezing Emily's shoulder. Remember, we're here to honor their stories. We have to believe. Emily nodded, trying to absorb her grandmother's fierce courage. Entering the hall was like stepping onto a stage under glaring lights. The community was gathering, familiar faces mixed with those of strangers. Mark stood at the front, arms spread wide, his excitement palpable. "Let us fill this room with stories," he called out, his words flowing like honey. "We all have wounds, but together, we can heal." The crowd stirred, a sense of solidarity sparked in the dim light. Women nodded, men whispered to one another. Emily caught snippets of conversations, words of loss, resilience, and unity began circulating, an invisible thread weaving through them all. As the event commenced, Emily felt her heart beat in sync with the rhythm of shared experience. They started small, inviting a few brave souls to step up and share. One by one, stories poured forth, tales of pain laced with strength, moments of vulnerability that transcended time. Then, an unexpected voice broke through. A woman in her 60s, eyes sparkling with tears, rose to tell her story. "My father fought in the war, and he never spoke about it," she shared, her breath hitching. "It's time we acknowledge those silent battles." Gasps and murmurs followed her, emotions swirling among the audience. Emily felt a knot in her throat, the camaraderie and shared pain pulsated like a heartbeat. The minutes turned to hours, and more voices began to rise. Each story was like a candle illuminating the shadows, revealing the intricate tapestry of their lives. Emily glanced at Grandma, who watched, transfixed, tears glistening in her eyes. Betty's hand tightened around hers, a bond forged in that very moment. Yet as the event progressed, the clouds that had loomed over their town began to reappear. Emily felt it, the unspoken whispers of dissent, the tightening of jaws as one man stood to speak. "Don't we have enough to bear? Do we really need to dredge up the past?" A sudden hush dropped like a stone, and Emily's breath caught. Would this be the breaking point? Would fear overtake hope? But before she could muster a response, Grandma Betty stepped forward, her voice unwavering. "The past doesn't go away if we ignore it. It festers. We must confront it, for ourselves, for those who cannot speak anymore, and for the next generations." The weight of her words resonated deep within the hall. Time slowed as the crowd absorbed what was said. Then the applause erupted like a crack of thunder, shattering the tension. In that moment, Emily realized something profound. Sharing stories wasn't about softening the past. It was about the courage to face it, a collective strength pulsing through the town. As the final story wrapped up, applause echoed around the hall, reverberating in hearts. But Emily couldn't shake a new fear. The riptide of emotions could just as easily bring them to the surface as tear them apart. Tonight, they'd shared a piece of their souls, but what would tomorrow bring? Would the stories live on in the hearts of the community, or would they find themselves retreating again into silence after this catharsis? As Emily walked home, she took in the evening air, thick with possibility. The journey ahead felt daunting, but she understood now the stories would shape them, guide them forward together. Suddenly, a thought struck her with sharpness. What if some voices had not yet been heard? What if there was more to uncover beneath the surface? Despite the warmth in her chest, she realized the journey was just beginning. What hidden stories still waited to be told? Would her own voice be among them? The following day dawned crisp and clear, the sun beaming down like a promise. Emily woke up with a renewed sense of purpose tinged with apprehension. After last night's emotional whirlwind, she felt the weight of stories lingering in the air, yearning for more voices to be heard. "Good morning, sunshine," Grandma Betty greeted her from the kitchen, where the smell of pancakes wafted through the house, a familiar comfort. But beneath the surface of normalcy, Emily sensed something had shifted in her grandmother. A sense of anticipation flickered in her eyes. "Morning, Grandma," Emily replied, trying to sound cheerful. Her heart fluttered. "Did you think about what we could do today?" "Absolutely," Betty said, flipping a pancake like she was flipping the script of their lives. "This isn't over. It's only just begun." As they ate, Emily asked her the question lurking at the back of her mind. "What about your stories, Grandma? What did you hold back last night?" Grandma's gaze turned thoughtful. Oh, my dear, I have stories. Some I've shared, and others I've buried. She took a deep breath, the weight of years hanging in the silence. Emily leaned forward, driven by curiosity. Would you share one with me, just now? Betty hesitated, a shadow flickering over her features. But then she straightened, the inner resolve returning. All right. Let me tell you about the summer of '62, the summer I lost everything yet found myself. The words flowed slowly at first, but with each sentence, Grandma's voice grew stronger. I was just a girl then, but the scope of life was already painted so vividly. We faced hardships, lost loved ones, and even had to stand up to the shadows that threatened our peace. I remember discovering the strength I never knew I had. That summer, my heart solidified into something more resilient. Emily listened with rapt attention, her heart swelling. Grandma spoke of silent battles, of community bond that pulled them through the wreckage, and of her dreams that had sparked amid the chaos. Mom used to remind me, Grandma continued, that every hardship was also a lesson to be learned. And sometimes she paused, as if weighing her words, sometimes in the stories of our struggles lies the key to healing. The kitchen felt smaller, yet so much more expansive as hunger for truth entered the room. With every story Betty shared, Emily felt something blossom inside her. When Grandma finished, Emily couldn't help but ask, but why hide these stories? Why not share them? Betty smiled gently. Some tales seem too heavy to bear in front of others. I wanted you to reach out first, to find your voice. I guess, in a way, I was waiting on you. Emily's heart raced as realization sank in. The torch had been passed, and the weight of shared stories rested heavily on her shoulders now. When they returned to the town hall later that evening, the atmosphere echoed with a blend of excitement and uncertainty. As they stepped through the doors, a ripple of very human reactions washed over them. People gathered close, people stayed in groups, at times smiling, and at others, whispering. Emily felt the warmth of Grandma's hand gripping hers. The air was electric, filled not just with stories from last night but with the need for more. They could break barriers, touch lives, and turn the vulnerability of past pain into vivid narrative. Tonight, she said, facing the gathered crowd, let us continue sharing the untold stories. The ones that matter, the ones that heal. As she felt the weight of those words settle around her, she noticed Grandma's bright eyes, sparkling with pride and courage. Just then, Emily spotted a familiar face stepping forward, someone she hadn't expected to see. It was Sam, the quiet boy from school who had always stayed in the background, rarely drawing attention to himself. But tonight, he stood at the front, uncertainty pressing down on his shoulders. Emily's heart thudded in her chest as his voice finally broke through the chatter, soft yet firm. I have something to say. What would Sam reveal? Would it break the silence he had wrapped himself in for so long? The assembly fell into a sharp hush, anticipation buzzing through the air. Emily felt excitement mixed with concern. The night was unfolding in unexpected ways, and she couldn't wait to hear whether Sam's hidden story would change the course of the evening. Even the community in that moment, she understood it wasn't just her grandmother's voice needing to be heard. Her own journey of storytelling was about to begin, igniting voices in unexpected places. Now, what would Sam share? Would he echo the courage Betty had inspired in Emily? The crowd quieted, eyes fixed on Sam as he took a deep breath, his shoulders rising and falling with each inhale. Emily's heart raced, his nervousness was palpable. The faint creak of the old wooden floor beneath them seemed to amplify the silence, holding the weight of his words tightly. I never thought I'd stand up here, he began, his voice a whisper against the backdrop of expectations. But I've been listening, you know. For so long, I've just been watching everyone else share their stories. And I realized it's time. It's time for me to be brave. Emily leaned in closer, a mix of admiration and hope swelling within her. She wanted to reach out, to tell him he was already brave just by standing there. But she stayed quiet, knowing he needed this moment. I got bullied pretty bad in middle school, Sam continued, glancing down at the floor, then back at the faces before him. I didn't want to say anything. I thought if I stayed silent, it would get better, like somehow the pain would just dissolve. His voice shook slightly, but he pressed on, the honesty spilling forth with each word. It didn't. I felt alone. I felt invisible. Gasps swept through the audience, a shared understanding threading its way around the room. Emily could see Sam's peers reflecting on their own experiences, the memories stored in the corners of their minds. And then one day, he said, I saw a flyer for a storytelling workshop. At first, I thought, what good would that do me? But something pulled me in. I went. I listened to people share their pain, their hope, and it clicked. I realized that I wasn't alone. That every story has power. He paused, letting the silence absorb his words. The audience stayed rapt, enraptured by Sam's confession. I didn't just want to share my own story to be brave, Sam continued, a spark of determination igniting in his nervous gaze. I wanted to show others that they're not invisible. That we can break this cycle of silence. That we can hold hands and walk through the fire together. With every word, Sam was peeling back layers that had shielded him from vulnerability. Emily felt the flicker of something deep within her, the power of connection, of shared experience. This wasn't just his moment. This was a moment for everyone. And so he hesitated, taking one more step forward. Here I am. Sharing. I still have days where I feel that darkness creeping in, but I've started turning the silence into sound. I want us all to speak our truths into existence. The crowd erupted in soft applause, a wave of affirmations. Emily noticed Grandma's hand clasping her shoulder, the proud glimmer in her eyes. It felt as though Sam's story had sparked a chain reaction, igniting courage in others, too. Then, something remarkable happened. One by one, people began standing up, some to share their own stories of resilience, others to simply voice their support. The room buzzed with emotions, joy, pain, hope. Each voice added to a tapestry of shared experience. Emily's heart soared, recognizing this gathering was blossoming into something beautiful. When it was over, she felt dizzy with emotion, the energy of the night wrapping around her like a warm blanket. As people started to mingle and share stories in hushed tones, Emily turned to Sam, who was still standing at the front, visibly shaken yet empowered. Thank you for sharing, she said, her voice steady but filled with gratitude. You were incredible. He smiled shyly, a flicker of disbelief crossing his delicate features. I didn't think I could do it. But now, I feel free. As the evening wound down, Emily's mind raced with thoughts. What other stories lay waiting in the shadows? What truths remained unshared? Was this just the beginning of a bigger journey for not just herself, but for the whole community? Once more, she locked eyes with her grandmother. The bond between them had been strengthened, flowing with the shared stories. And in that moment, Emily understood the journey was theirs to navigate. But they would not walk it alone. As the town hall grew quieter, a voice pierced through the crowd. Again. Emily. You have to hear my story next. Her heart quickened. What awaited her next? Would she be ready to step into the light, just as Sam had? Emily's heart raced as she heard her name. The familiar sound brought a smile, but it also filled her with uncertainty. She turned to see Jenny, a girl from her art class, standing up, a nervous grin on her face. Jenny had always been a quiet one, but something about tonight had sparked a fire in her. Hi everyone, Jenny called out, her voice a bit shaky. The crowd quieted once more, faces filled with curiosity. I've never done anything like this before. Emily felt a rush of support for her friend. She could see the flickers of her own courage reflected in Jenny's eyes. I've been struggling with feeling accepted, Jenny continued, her answers coming slowly as if she was searching for the right words. In high school, it can be lonely. Sometimes you feel in a bubble, right? But watching Sam, it made me realize how important it is to share and to connect. So, here goes. As the words tumbled from Jenny's mouth, Emily noticed nods of understanding erupt around the room. Each shared silence wrapped around them, each pause a gentle push for Jenny to keep going. I was bullied too, Jenny confessed, looking down at her hands. I used to think it was my fault for being different. But as I listened to the stories tonight, I realized it's those differences that make us strong, that those differences are valuable, not a weakness. The crowd murmured in agreement, and Emily could feel a quiet power building as Jenny spoke. And then, Jenny went on, her voice gaining strength, I found art. It became my voice when I didn't know how to speak. I started using it to tell my truth, to share my thoughts, and it felt like I was sparking conversations, not just with myself but with others too. I'm learning how to show who I really am. Her emotions surged through the room. Emily could see the light in Jenny's eyes, how sharing her story was allowing her to reclaim lost parts of herself. They all sat in collective awe, realizing they were participating in something transformative. A soft ripple of applause broke through as Jenny wrapped up. So, thank you, Sam, for being brave and showing us that silence doesn't have to be the end. With that, her voice tapered off, but the energy in that room was electric. People chatted eagerly, and Emily felt the warmth of community pulse with every shared glance. Then, she felt a flutter of anxiety tightening her chest. Was it her turn next? Would she find the strength to share? Glancing at Sam, who was smiling, still riding high on his own vulnerability, Emily felt the familiar pull of introspection. What story lived quietly within her? What had she buried so deep that it seemed to belong to a different person altogether? Just as she began to gather her thoughts, another voice rang out, Emily, go for it. We're all waiting to hear from you. It was Daryl, his enthusiasm infectious. The crowd turned, eyes wide with anticipation, and suddenly, the room felt smaller. She could feel their energy merging into something potent, wrapping around her in a warm embrace, urging her to share what had brewed within her for so long. With every heartbeat, her resolve grew stronger, ignited in that moment by a desire to speak her truth. But then, before she could find her voice, a tense silence fell over the hall. A figure at the back of the room shuffled forward, and Emily squinted, recognizing the messy curls and timid demeanor. It was Avery, a girl everyone knew had faced her own battles, but had never found the courage to speak out loud. May I share too? Avery's voice trembled, but there was a fierce light in her eyes that drew everyone in. Emily's heart skipped. What incredible revelation might Avery uncover? What power hid beneath her quiet exterior? In that moment, everything felt poised on a precipice. Would tonight's stories unravel more than tears and laughter? Would they push boundaries and reshape their understanding of each other, of themselves? With bated breath, the audience leaned in, waiting for the truth to emerge. Avery took a deep breath, her eyes darting around the room, taking in the faces of friends and acquaintances who had watched her from afar. She seemed to draw strength from their glances, the shared smiles and encouragement. I've kept my story hidden because I thought no one would care, she began, her voice steadier now, confidence flickering like a flame. But tonight, I want to change that. I want to stop hiding. A wave of support washed over Emily and the others as they listened intently, the air thick with anticipation. I grew up in a noisy house filled with laughter and chaos. My grandma was the heartbeat of our family, Avery continued, her eyes brightening. She was the one who taught me how to paint. Every summer, she'd sit with me, guiding my hands, encouraging me to express myself. She always said, art is a window to your soul. I loved that phrase. The way Avery's lips curled into a soft smile as she spoke about her grandmother painted a picture clearer than any canvas. Emily felt her heart swell with affection for the woman they had never met but who contributed so much to Avery's spirit. But my grandma had her own battle, Avery said, her tone shifting to something more somber. She was fighting depression. I didn't fully understand then. I thought I could make her happy by sharing my art, pouring my heart onto every canvas. I created so many pieces just for her. I wanted to remind her that she mattered. The soft murmurs in the crowd faded as Avery continued, her vulnerability becoming a tether that connected them all. One day, I came home, and she wasn't there. She had left. I didn't know how to process it. I was just a kid, and I thought it was my fault that I wasn't good enough. Tears brimmed in her eyes as she spoke, and a hush fell over the crowd. But through the pain, I discovered something. Avery paused, taking a steadying breath, her gaze unwavering. I found her journal. In it, she had written about feeling lost and small, how she felt overshadowed by the world. She wanted to fight but didn't know how. She wrote about seeing them, our paintings, my art, and how those moments filled her with hope. It was my art that had been her light, even when she couldn't see it. Gasps of realization swept through the audience. Each of them understood deeply what she meant. Art had the power to heal, to connect, and even inspire. It was then, Avery continued, that I promised to keep telling stories not just mine, but hers. So I decided to open an art program for kids in my neighborhood. I wanted to show them how valuable they are, to help them find their own voices, just like my grandma showed me. Together, we could spread light, bring back the joy she fought so hard for. A powerful energy stirred in the room, and Avery finished her story with conviction. We've impacted over 100 kids since then, and their voices are booming. Each person has a story waiting to come out, and I want to help them find it. As her voice trailed off, the applause erupted around her, a wave of appreciation and tears for the strength she had summoned. Emily felt a rush of admiration. In that moment, she realized how transforming it could be to share their truths. But as inspiration settled in her heart, a sense of urgency surged forward. Would she finally find her own voice? The crowd continued to cheer for Avery, each clap echoing their newfound understanding of connection. Just then, Sam leaned toward Emily, eyes sparkling with encouragement. Your turn, Em. I know you have something amazing to share. What if tonight was the night she transformed her vulnerability into strength? What if she could inspire, too? Would she step into the light, or would she shrink back into the shadows? With her heart pounding, she took a deep breath, ready to take the leap, because it felt like more than just her own story. It could be a beacon for others. But before she could stand, a gentle voice broke through. Wait. I have to say something. To Emily turned, her curiosity piqued. Who else was about to reveal their truth? The crowd fell silent, eyes widening in anticipation as a young man stepped forward, his hands trembling slightly. He looked familiar, someone who had attended the art classes Avery ran. A buzz of recognition rippled through the audience. It was Jake, a quiet kid who had always shied away from the spotlight. I've been sitting in the back, too scared to speak up, he admitted, his voice almost breaking. But Avery's story, it resonated with me. It touched a part of me that I didn't even know existed. He looked down for a moment, gathering his courage as he shuffled his feet. My grandma, she was everything to me, too. She was my anchor, just like Avery's. But she also struggled. I remember her sitting in her chair, staring out the window, and I wished I could paint colors around her sadness. Jake glanced up, his teary eyes meeting Avery's. Your grandma's art brought hope to you, and my grandma loved the little things I created: doodles, sketches on napkins. I thought they were nothing. But she always praised me, convinced that one day I would be an amazing artist. He paused, the weight of his words hanging in the air for a moment. But I never really believed her. I stopped drawing after she passed, thinking it wouldn't bring her back. I hid my sketches away, convinced they weren't good enough. A sympathetic murmur echoed within the crowd as they felt Jake's pain. It was a feeling many understood, a doubt that crept in when faced with vulnerability. But then I met Avery, he continued, his tone shifting from sorrow to inspiration. I joined her classes, and slowly, I started to find my voice through art again. Thanks to her, I realized that it's not about perfection. It's about expression. As Emily listened, she felt her heart swell with admiration. Jake was transforming before their eyes, sharing a piece of his soul. I'm here because of what Avery did for me and what she's done for so many kids like us. So, I want to thank her for being a whirlwind of light when everything else felt dark. You have no idea how powerful you are, Avery. Cheers erupted from the crowd, echoing Jake's gratitude. Emily felt a shift, a collective moment of realization amongst them. Every story held weight, every truth shared built bridges of understanding. Jake stepped back, his shoulders a little straighter now. Moments later, the applause crescendoed, but something still buzzed in the air, a certain urgency felt among the crowd. "Emily!" Someone called out, breaking the swell of enthusiasm. "It's your turn now." Her heart raced once more. That gentle push from Sam, mixed with Jake's boldness to share, left her with no escape. What could she possibly say that could match what Avery and Jake had bravely revealed? The room turned toward her expectantly, the energy thick with encouragement. She felt the echoes of their stories fuse with her own unease, a burning spark urging her to step forth, but what would she reveal? A dark truth or a hidden passion remained tucked inside, waiting for its moment. "Go on, Em," Sam said softly, almost like a whisper, yet resonating with the sincerity of 1,000 cheers. Emily took a deep breath, trying to ground herself. Would she finally step out from behind her walls, or would she retreat again? As she stood, something deep within stirred. It was an ache, an urgency pressing her forward, clamoring for expression. What story would she tell? Before she could answer, a dark storm swept in from the corner of her mind as a familiar voice echoed within her. "Emily, are you ready to show them the real you? Or are you just going to stay hidden forever?" What had she been hiding from? This was her moment, but at what cost? And as she looked into the open faces before her, the shadows of doubt fell away. "Let us find out," she whispered to herself, ready to step into the light. Stepping forward, Emily felt the weight of the room's anticipation. The familiar knot of nerves twisted in her stomach, but there was also a flicker of excitement, a pulse of connection coursing through her veins. She took a deep breath, the air shimming with possibility. "Hi, everyone. I'm Emily," her voice rang out, a bit shaky yet steady as she locked eyes with the warm faces surrounding her. "I'm here because my grandmother taught me that stories hold power. And today, I want to share something that I've kept bottled up for too long," she continued, feeling the warmth of encouragement wash over her. The faces in the crowd urged her on, a sea of smiles, nods, and soft murmurs of support enveloping her like a hug. "I've struggled a lot with self-doubt," she admitted, tears pricking at the corners of her eyes. "I've always felt like I was standing in the shadows of those around me, too afraid to shine." A collective sigh rippled through the audience, a show of empathy. She recalled the weight of those suffocating days, feeling like a chameleon blending into the walls. "After I lost my job, I felt lost, like my purpose had slipped right through my fingers. There were moments when I thought I'd never find the courage to speak out, to be seen." But as she gazed at her grandmother, a soft smile lighting up Betty's face, something shifted. "And then I found my voice through my grandma's story. Her memories and experiences ignited a flame within me. I realized that even behind pain, hope breathes, it craves to be shared." With every word, Emily felt lighter, her spirit soaring with a sense of belonging. "That's when I knew I couldn't remain silent anymore. I needed to honor my grandma's legacy and my own," she continued, glancing back at the crowd. "Together, we all have the power to change lives. All of us have stories to tell. And in sharing them, we break barriers and create spaces where everyone can breathe." The warmth in the room surged, a wave of affirmation. "But it wasn't just about me, it was about each of you," Emily said, her voice gaining strength. "I've watched you all your struggles, your victories, and I see now how essential it is to lift one another up. Tonight is proof of the strength we carry together." In that moment, she felt the energy shift. People nodded, hands gripped with shared understanding, hearts pulsing with the realization of connection. "So, thank you," she finished, her heart hammering in her chest. "Thank you for being the incredible individuals you are. Let us continue to share, to embrace our truth, and to honor the voices that deserve a place in the light." The applause erupted like fireworks, and tears streamed down Emily's cheeks as she stepped back, her heart overflowing. She knew now that she wasn't just stepping into the light for herself but for everyone who had dared to share their truth that night. Beside her, her grandmother wrapped her arms around her, the warmth of a loving embrace grounding Emily as the audience rose to their feet in appreciation. A feeling of unity pulsed through the room, hearts knitted together in a way that they had never experienced before. As chatter erupted around her, Emily noticed that the stories weren't over. They were igniting endless conversations. She watched neighbors lean in closer, laughter bubbling, connections deepening. It was a beautiful chaos, full of life and raw emotions that echoed in the walls of the old town hall. From behind the crowd, Mark stepped forward, a glint in his eye. "So, how about we document this journey? We can turn these stories into a vibrant collection that honors every voice, every truth. Who's with us?" Raising hands in enthusiastic agreement, the crowd erupted into cheers. Emily felt her heart race. The project would extend beyond one night, allowing healing and transformation to seep into their community. This was just the beginning of a much grander chapter. As the evening continued, the air thick with hope, Emily realized how profoundly they had all changed. They were no longer the silent shadows of the past but vibrant hearts intertwined, showcasing the strength in their vulnerability. In that moment, she understood that stories had the power to uplift, to connect, and to transform lives forever. They had all taken brave steps into the light, and together, they would march forward, reminding each other of the healing found in sharing. As Emily swept her gaze across the busy room, filled with laughter and camaraderie, she felt something unlock within her, a shared resilience that could never be extinguished. It was beautiful, it was freeing, and it was just the beginning. And now, as we wrap up this incredible journey, don't forget, you need to subscribe now to follow our next exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support. Tap that like button right now to help us reach more hearts. I want to hear from you, so comment your reactions and feelings about this ending. It's time to share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this amazing transformation. Don't wait not even one more second to share. Every voice matters.